Welcome back to Letting Them Lead. I am Marie Muratala.
And I'm Laurie Cook.
And we're here to talk all about early childhood education. We'll be talking about
something that sounds really cool. Strength-based learning.
I was really worried you were going to not have an idea for us. And we were just going to sit here and think about something that sounded really cool.
Well, I was chatting with a behavior specialist, and she used that term, and I feel like that's the term I've been looking for because I use that concept. To me, it means looking at an individual child's strength and capitalizing on it. Mm-hmm. Finding ways to add that into the curriculum, because you all have your standard curriculum you're supposed to do, but how can you develop it according to those individual needs? And I think we've talked about that for years. I know all the years that I've worked, at least for the last 15, it's always been about individualizing education and making it fit the individual child.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy to do.
No, it's not. I mean, I was sitting in an IEP meeting. My student is showing that he needs more in terms of like sensory needs. I know I talk a lot about that, but I have a lot of kids that have that. He likes to get up and move and, following classic center rotations inside a classroom where it's table to table to table.
And what age are we talking about?
Preschool, 4 years old. It's not 100% for him. And then we were in the IEP meeting and his mom was like, he loves to be outside. We hear more language when he's outside. He's much more engaged in things. And I'm like, yeah, see, like, it's so hard for me because in terms of strength-based learning, like, sometimes we're not meeting kids where we should be meeting them. I just wish our schools, like, were set up to accommodate all those different things. I really do, because it'd be so cool. I mean, in preschool, it's easier for me especially,
I think so,
to take them outside in those moments and think on your feet, hopefully.
Right.
Hopefully you do that, and, you're like, you know what, like, even if you're supposed to be at inside for a whole group lesson, like, why don't we go out to the grass right now and let's talk about the bugs, or let's do that. Like, I noticed today, one of my teachers, we were supposed to be outside, but she gathered all the kids. She's really good at, like, turning in whatever lesson they've worked on in the classroom, like turning it into an outside experience. So when we're outside, she's like, let's go on a bug hunt. And she goes with them and they look for bugs because they've been learning about bugs, or like, they'll talk about, the wind, or like something. Like, she shows them things that are so applicable and meaningful to them. But then sometimes you do have those learners that, like, they just do better outdoors. Like, they should have their speech sessions outside if it's possible. Like, center rotations outside. Like, I can't imagine, like, how cool that would be, Like,
I try. I do try. If I had more staff, I would.
I know, and I think that's where we run into it. It's the setup, it's the staffing, it's back to that. But
so we have to be creative with what we have. So one of the ways I handle that is to do the centers, the activities, the choice activities, some outside, some inside, so that there's a flow like that. But I have to stand in between the door, or my aide and I have to read each other. And if I have to go over here because somebody has a certain thing happening and I'm able to handle it, she needs to go to the doorway or whatever, because it's just the way it's set up. But speaking of bugs, this was magical. All of a sudden, because we have a play yard and then a gate to the grass, and it's just grass, there's no play equipment. The play equipment's on the spongy top thing on the other side, and they figured out that there were ladybugs swarming in the grass. And they were going crazy happy, and they were collecting them. So today, a couple days ago, I brought out magnifying glasses. And then they were studying those with them. And then today I let each of them, whoever wanted to, bring a couple and put them on our flower box, because we've had that since flower planting began, right? And anyway, so that was cool. We also did the butterfly experiment, and the butterflies, they just weren't healthy this time.
You know what? Ours, at one of my sites, it was sad. It was...
Well, we just talked about how...
Yep.
this is nature too. These caterpillars weren't healthy.
Yeah, they didn't get their nutrients.
But you know what?
In their sleep.
You know what? They still kept evolving and trying to emerge. So they emerged partially.
Yeah.
But one did emerge, and it flew away today. The one.
That's all we got too. Well, back to strength-based learning. I'm curious. So, what else was your behavior specialist talking about?
We kind of collaborated on the fact that our schools aren't set up. We said the same kind of thing.
I think there's been this wave of figuring out how to best serve students that learn differently, neurodivergent students, instead of forcing all our kids to comply with the things that are happening inside the public school system and in the classrooms. I've been collaborating a lot with one of our district behavior specialists on, just the other day I was texting her and I was like, I don't think it's right that we're calling a student who has to vocalize because it regulates him. He does like a vocalization. I don't understand why I'm calling that a problem behavior on a document. And she's like, it's not a problem behavior. Yeah. Like, it's something he's doing to regulate himself.
What would be your recommendation for that? Let's say you're doing a circle time and you have somebody that's doing that or humming, and it might cause a chain effect in preschool.
Yeah.
And you're trying to conduct this curriculum that you're supposed to conduct. I wouldn't want to call it a behavior. I wouldn't want to let's them not have the opportunity, but how do you push through that? How does he get what he needs?
Sure.
And the rest of the class get what they need?
And a lot of us are still trying to figure those out on an individual, or that out on individual levels, right? I have a student where we think we figure it out and then it's not it that day, and then or it changes or whatever. I think first of all, I do want to preface by saying, because you said, how do we get away from calling it a behavior? I think we have to think about it like technically. It's a behavior. We're like right now, me moving my hands,
I guess
that is a behavior,
negative.
Right?
Yeah.
So problem behavior, exactly.
Yeah, I don't want to call it
It's not a problem behavior. And it all starts from how you choose to look at it as the, kind of head of your classroom and how you're modeling for the other students. If Johnny needs to hum to feel like, it's hard with little ones because you say, well, Johnny needs to hum to feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. And then every kid's going to be like, well, I don't feel comfortable. I want to try
like if we tell the whole class that, like, because I've got one that'll say, this child's bothering me from doing this, or whatever it is.
Then you can choose to take a break from this activity, go to that activity, and come back when you feel regulated. I think giving them all opportunities, if you feel bothered right now, that's fine too, but he needs to hum to help his body feel calm. Mm-hmm. If your body doesn't feel calm right now, you can say, I'll be right back, and you can go do something that regulates you. I think giving them that ability to say that and have that autonomy, and again, it's so much easier, I think, for us because we're in these classrooms where we're trying, and not that other teachers aren't trying, I shouldn't say trying, but where we have more opportunities to be flexible, I guess is a better way to put it. When you're in early childhood education, like, that's all we're doing is just kind of like, let's see if this works, let's see if this works. Like, and so giving our kids that opportunity to say, you know what, like, I don't want to be sitting next to him because maybe they're trying to say it's distracting me.
Right.
That's fair, but we're not going to ask the other kid to stop if he needs to do that. Because they're still so little, and I think it's still like a developmental thing where as they get older, they might learn new ways to regulate, and we can model those things and give them those opportunities. But I think it feels wrong to tell a child, stop humming or stop doing what you need to do that calms you for the sake of another person. Like, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's hard because I get where it's like we don't want them to learn that
they're the only thing that counts. That we're in a society together. We're
like we want them to know, like,
caring.
Like when you do that, I guess, like, it is loud, and sometimes, it makes our friends unable to maybe focus on the story I'm reading. So I think when we're at this early childhood age, this is where we teach the empathy. I had a teacher today, we were talking about this. We're talking about the fact that we're sending one of our students, just to give good background, because I think this is very valid. We're sending a student with a device, with an AAC device, and the teacher that, you know, the class he's going into is concerned that, you know, this is going to cause a lot of distraction in the class because this student gets to use an iPad. It could be distracting because the iPad, you know, was seen as a toy, whatever, like.
Right, and the other kids are going to want it.
The other kids are going to want it, and it's like this, but this is the age. He's going into another early childhood program. Like, this is where we teach the empathy and the understanding for different needs. And if it's not harming anybody. Now, I've had a student in the past who I think has affected my own hearing, truly. And so, like, that loud, you know, where it's kind of harmful, like, that's where I'm like, okay, like, you can squeal, just not that loud. Like, that hurts. You know, I literally had to wear earplugs in my session. So, like, there are those moments where it's like, okay, we kind of want to teach that, like, it's okay for you to do this, but if it's at that level, it's a little too loud. Let's, you know, we're inside, and you keep modeling. We're inside, we use quiet voices. So if they're humming, maybe we just teach them, you know, I like it that you're humming. It helps you calm your body. Can you try it like you're humming, like you're whispering? Like, you know, like we're not stopping.
Somehow, my kids are 5 now. And they're this close to kinder, right? And I worry because if I'm not starting to have them learn how to be that kinder person, they're going to go into shock when they get there, you know? So I worry, I don't want to do them a disservice. But I feel like it might be appropriate for me to say, if you know, to him, not maybe calling out in the whole group, but pull him aside and say, if you feel you need to hum, let's find a space somewhere else in the room so that the other children can listen, because, you know, whatever it is. Because I'm required to do certain things.
Sure.
Technical, you know, and I need to do them, and a lot of kids are ready for it.
And I get that. And if that, you know, again, it's really about looking at the individual, and if that is something that child wouldn't, like, you knowing them as their teacher, if that wouldn't be even more call to attention, or like that wouldn't be taking him out of his environment, because I think that's where, for me, I would be a little bit like, well, wait, but you're asking him to go to a separate space just because he's trying to regulate. Like, if, you know,
he has to learn the empathy for the other child as well.
100%. But what I'm saying, but I think there's been so much of trying to learn the empathy for the mass, for the group, versus the empathy for that one difference. We're seeing less empathy as they get older in school, I guess is the best way to put it, because and that's also why, like, some students are having, I think, more challenges, is because they've been told, in a sense, to mask those behaviors and not do them, and so they don't feel regulated. And that's when we see kids that, like, they learn how to do it at school, and then they go home and they let loose, and then the parents are like, oh my gosh, like, what's wrong? Are you having a hard time in school? And it's like, well, no, they're not, because at school they've learned how to keep it all in, and then they go home and they, you know, need to do all the things to regulate, and they're exhausted. Like, I've heard so many stories from parents or from older kids that feel that way. So, you know, we have these systems of, well, students are supposed to sit, they're supposed to listen for this amount of time, they're supposed to attend for this amount of time. Well, some students, like, need to be able to regulate through those things, but they shouldn't have to go away from the class because they're not going to want to go. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you ask him to go to a separate space, he may not want to, so he's just going to pretend he's okay in the space, but it could be more harmful long term.
It would have to be something I could observe.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you got to take into account the fact that, like I said, the other kids are losing focus because of it.
Right.
And he's on his way to kindergarten, where it's probably not going to be tolerated. Just let's face it, they're just not. It's just
but here's the thing, and I'm trying to remind myself too, because I'm nervous for my babies going to kindergarten too. I'm thinking about them in a full day, and you know, with way more structure and way more transitions and all of that. But kindergarten is still the first year of school at all for a lot of kids that are starting next year. They haven't had preschool, they haven't had TK, and they're going in, and parents are like, here you go. And so, and nothing wrong with that, but, like, that's, you know, these are kids that have not been in school. Maybe they've had some daycare experience, or they've been around other kids and they do things, but, like, the teachers in kinder still have fresh kids that have not been in there. So as we're kind of thinking of like sending our little ones, and I know we're like, are they ready? Like, did we set them up for success? We have to just trust that we did, and we, you know, especially with that intention of following their lead, of giving them individualized support, of giving, you know, looking at their strengths and helping their learning, which I truly believe you are doing, and I know I'm doing. That's all we can really, at the end of the day, do, and send them off, you know, and communicate with the teachers they're getting. Like, this is what I noticed works well for them. This is what didn't. Like, here's my advice. Like, if you want to make a connection with this student, these are the strengths right here. And then at the end of the day, like, this is the system we're in. I know this is hard, but this is the truth. It is now the responsibility of that other professional to then run their classroom and make connections with these students. And so it's tough, because my heart is in it right now too, trust me. I mean, I've been all week. Earlier you were asking me the highlights of my week, and I'm coming off a day where I felt like I was on a roller coaster emotionally with making decisions for kids going on and to kinder, and I don't feel like I have any answers or clarity after a day full of conversations about it. And so I feel you.
I guess as, you know, mama hen, I want my little flock to all get the best of everything.
Of course, and trust me.
And I just have to know that they're going to get exactly what they need.
Yeah.
And just trust that, because, I mean, and that's my faith in my whole life, but as a human,
it's hard. I mean,
you know, I'm trying to teach them, and I find myself every now and then getting a little frustrated because it's my fear. Like, I want to correct this, but I can only do that support, guide them into conforming. It's a terrible thought, isn't it? But that's my subconscious, because I want them to fit so that they don't get labeled negatively.
But see, that's what I'm trying to say, is it's because we're not building the empathy from the get-go. It is rooted in the system because we have just kind of allowed it to.
Like, so you mean that's where I'm getting my fear? Is that what you're saying? Oh, yeah.
And I know. I watch these peers. They are so good, and these little ones, look, they learn how to not get distracted. It's us calling attention to the fact that Johnny's being distracting that 9 times out of 10 I notice is what makes the kids say, yeah, I don't want to sit next to him.
Right.
Because we're calling that attention. But when I watch these 3 and 4-year-olds, they're little, and yes, they get that's the easiest distracted age. And they learn how to still function in their classroom and accept and love these kids through it. I have a little boy who, this story melts my heart, because he was having a rough day on Tuesday, just rough. And when he has a rough day, it's wherever he's at in the middle. He was running around the carpet at circle time, and he just flopped to the ground in the middle of the carpet and started crying. And some of the students just kept watching the teacher. They just kept, and I was there, so I went to support him. Another little girl got up, came and gave him a hug, and said, "Let's go to yellow chair," and she helped him go to where he needed to be. Like,
the place where he feels safe?
Yeah, just his chair. His chair for circle time. But like, that's what we're teaching. Not, hey, you can't be in the middle of the carpet right now having a, meltdown. No, we're teaching, look, like, he got upset. He's still, we say, he's still learning. Like, we teach that empathy of, like, he doesn't react the same way you do, or he needs different things. He needs a hug. And so I think it's more about the adults. It's about when these kids go on, it's about helping them understand, hey, you can do this.
Well, then I've been doing what you like, because that's what I do. I model, like, if that behavior, I suggest you can see better, your brain grows better when you're sitting up looking and watching, but if they're in the background and they're kind of laying down or something, I don't say anything, but I know they're going to be told next year.
But they have now had a year of school where their needs were accommodated, and there's a level of confidence that they're going in. I mean, I know it's not much time, but at the same time, it's such a huge foundation where they were given time in that space to be who they are truly.
Work out the kinks.
And figure out
Wasn't
what they need in a classroom, and give you the opportunity to figure out, like, hey, if he needs to lay down for a second at circle time, like, he may need that. And maybe you're letting his kinder teachers know. I notice he fatigues easily. Like, if you guys have space in your room to, like, crash, he might need that. Yeah. Just a heads up. Like, I don't see any problem with that. And if they look at you...
You don't, but they might.
Mom, trust me, I have been in meeting after meeting after meeting getting the looks.
But I'm talking about kids that I'm not right, because I don't write IEPs.
No, but you know
I know
them.
they do have needs that could easily go on an IEP for someone.
And when we circle completely back to strength-based learning, this is, when you're in a sense transitioning your kids to kindergarten, when you're conferencing with the teachers saying, like, hey, like, if you have questions about this student, like, let me help you, let me let you know his strengths. This is what helps him learn.
Well, I don't know if there's the opportunity for that. I haven't done it at this school.
It'd probably be next, like, in the beginning of the school year when they get their class lists.
I did ask my principal how that works, and they used to do those cards, but I don't think she...
It depends on the principal, because I know I have some, like at one of my sites, they don't do any of that until August.
Yeah, because they got to get the enrollment first.
Yeah.
Because they do try to place kids that do better away from each other and things like that.
But you don't have any say of, like, what teacher you recommend?
I really don't know.
This turned into kind of more of just a collaborative talk, which is pretty good.
That's what we were trying for, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just, when she said strength-based, it just made so much sense in the language of it. I know I'm doing that. I'm looking at their strengths. I put activities out specifically for one individual child.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of what we've talked about, you've touched on that. And I would encourage it for all teachers to kind of look into, and, again, instead of putting things in a box. I think that's really what would help if a lot of education got away from. But
well, it's frustrating me because I want so many changes, but I'm only one person.
By little. That's what
There have been a lot of changes over the last. I mean, I can tell you when I was in school.
Yeah.
And when you were in school, I see so many differences.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well.
All right.
On that note,
let's toast.
Good changes. Good changes coming.
Thanks for watching.